anything I've ever seen before in terms of vision, organisation, logistics. There's still a lot to do for us, not for the fighters. They've just got to train and fight. But it's just fascinating to be involved with this project. And you know, I have to kick myself sometimes that we're here in Saudi Arabia about to put on an iconic heavyweight event that will go down in history. You know, some people giggle when I say Thriller in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle. It's the same kind of narrative. You know, almost like a controversial venue that doesn't really stage boxing, an iconic heavyweight event. You will see on December 7th, this whole country will come out. They love AJ. They've been running after him all day. The airport last night was crazy. And you know, this is another huge country that can fall in love with the sport of boxing.
One of the big things is that in the negotiations, many people thought that AJ would have the choice to bring the fight back to the UK, to load everything in his favour, which would probably have been a winter's night in Cardiff with the roof on, with 80,000 people booing Andy Ruiz, making it uncomfortable and everything to AJ's advantage. Is there a theory behind why he's given that up?
Do you know what? I think what you just said there explains your question quite well. So if AJ beat Andy Ruiz in Cardiff, would he get that credit? You know, everything in his advantage, 80,000 people booing Ruiz, the terrible winter weather. So what do you want? Do you want an edge, or do you want to win the fight fair and square on an equal playing field, in a neutral venue? I know whilst Ruiz was under a watertight contract, he didn't want to come to the UK. And it's not that eventually we wouldn't have got him there, but it was almost like this opportunity came up in Saudi. It was also not just a great financial opportunity, but an opportunity to run the fight in a neutral territory with no excuses. And I think AJ was conscious about that. The last thing he wants to do is beat Andy Ruiz and have the reputation that he's had to bring him to the UK to get his advantages to do so.
Would that have mattered though? Ultimately,
for credit, for respect, yeah, because you only get one shot at this, and this is such an important fight. He doesn't want the favours, he doesn't want the edge. You know, all the things that you said, and I understand what you're saying. Like, from a common sense perspective, Cardiff is the place to do it. But, as always, I put the options in front of him and the training to go to a neutral venue. And when I put it to Ruiz's team about UK or Saudi, they made it very clear Saudi was their preferred option. So we didn't want any trouble with Ruiz. This was very important this fight took place. We knew it would take place, but we didn't want any delay. So we went to Saudi Arabia. You know, we made sure Team Ruiz was comfortable, and they're here, they're on the press tour, and we're ready to go December 7th.
You've been around Anthony Joshua for most of the last 3 months. You've stayed in constant communication with him. How do you feel about the way he's responded to the loss? Because he's done some things. He said, I'm not replacing Rob McCracken, his choice, of course. He's also said some interesting things, like I have to rediscover my passion for boxing, stuff that has raised some red flags, frankly, to people that follow boxing. How do you feel about the way he's responded in the aftermath of the loss?
I think he's been really honest, you know, and the thing is with Anthony is he doesn't say too much. But when he does talk, everyone blows it well out of proportion. You know, you had the Lennox Lewis comments, you had those comments that you just identified there. They're pretty honest comments. You know, I think that everybody was just talking about the undisputed fight for so long, and I think he lost a little bit of faith with the sport. He didn't really want to fight Andy Ruiz, if that makes sense. You know, not that he was afraid of him, he wasn't motivated by Andy Ruiz. His mistake, you know, and it cost him. But sometimes you can't just create that motivation. I know it's got to come from within, but it's got to be those kind of fights that give you that. And this rematch this is the first time in a long time no one's talking about what's next, because what's next is irrelevant unless he beats Andy Ruiz. So that's great for AJ because he can focus. You'll see him. Everybody's talking about, wow, AJ's really slimmed down. Look, he's lost all his bulk. No, he's concentrating a lot more on his boxing this time around. Rob McCracken is the right man to guide AJ to victory. He has done through his whole career. They're very close. I think losing him would be it would feel like a piece of AJ was gone to him. That was never in doubt. It was about getting the build-up right now, getting the tactics right, and getting the mind right. And he's been working. Since the day he was beaten to Andy Ruiz, he's been working mentally and physically to make sure he wins this fight.
What do you make of the fact that he is keeping Rob McCracken around? Because look, a lot of fighters have trainers that got them to a certain point. Lennox had one. Vladimir Klitschko had one. But change is what helped get them to the next level. Is no question that Anthony Joshua was loyal to Rob McCracken, as he should be. But does he need change going into a fight like this?
I don't believe so. I think he needs to change certain things in his camp, and I think Rob's probably wanted him to change certain things as well. AJ's a very deep thinker. He analyses stuff frequently. Rob McCracken is more than a trainer. He's a mentor. He's the guy that when the Olympic team wanted to kick Anthony Joshua off, he said, don't do it. This guy has the goods. He is the future. He's taken him from Olympic gold medal to professional debut to world heavyweight champion to unified heavyweight world champion twice. I'm sure they'll change things in camp. Whether it's drills, whether it's sparring, whether it's technique, that's up to them. But I know that Robert McCracken has one of the best minds in the sport of boxing, and he knows Anthony inside out. I feel like change can sometimes be good, but in this instance I'm not sure change is good, because it's so important to get this right. You can't play at things. You can't start trying him and trying him out for one fight. This fight is everything. And Anthony must win this fight. So he's staying with the guy that's got him to everywhere he's ever been.
Do you think he's in a good place mentally going into this fight? Do you think his confidence is where it needs to be after a loss like that?
I think it's very difficult for your confidence to be where it needs to be when you've just been stopped by a guy that you're facing again. He knows that he wasn't at his best. He knows that the preparation wasn't brilliant mentally, but he also knows he got beat by a very good heavyweight in Andy Ruiz. So he's not deluded. He knows that the same performance won't be enough. So he's got to change things. I think AJ's a realist. He's got a very clear mind and clear heart in that, he's not deluded. He's not going to start talking himself into something. He needs to see those changes in the gym to make, but he knows all the things he did wrong, and he knows how to correct it. And I don't think he's ever been as focused on an individual in a fight since Vladimir Klitschko. Maybe Joseph Parker, where he just was worrying about that particular fight. Back then, nothing mattered. No, we weren't talking about the undisputed fight. We weren't talking about Deontay Wilder every week. It was just, oh my God, we're fighting Vladimir Klitschko. How do we beat Klitschko? Now it's, how do we beat Andy Ruiz? That's what the team's saying. So confidence-wise, I'm sure like any sportsman coming off a defeat or a bad performance, you have your doubts. The good ones are mentally strong enough to overcome that, put the game plan together, and then execute it.
All right, so Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua, December 7th. Before we get to that, though, the fall schedule is loaded on DAZN, and you're a big part of everything that we have coming up here. September 13th, Devin Haney.
Amazing.
He headlines at Madison Square, the theater at Madison Square Garden. Haney's in an interesting place right now. You thought for a couple of months that maybe you'd get him in line for that title shot against Luke Campbell, the WBC.
Well, I wish we did, because Campbell had a pretty tough fight last week.
Here we see the schedule up there, and we begin with Devin Haney. What is in store for Haney? 135 pounds. He gets through. He's got a fight like this. Got to get through an undefeated opponent. But what kind of track do you have him on?
Well, firstly, when I just look at that page there, I say to myself, that's not a year on DAZN, is it? Oh no, it's a couple of months on DAZN. How can you not have DAZN? If you even have ever watched one round of professional boxing and you don't have DAZN, you are, as we say in England, a right plonker. Right? Look at that schedule there. This is, as the kids say, it's sick, Chris. It's sick. Look at that. The first one up, Devin Haney, who I regard as one of the top lightweights in the world. I think this is a guy that can genuinely challenge Vasily Lomachenko. If he wins next week, he becomes the mandatory challenger for Lomachenko. He won't stop calling him out till he fights him. We know that Lomachenko's due to unify the division, but Haney will be there. My only concern with Haney is he is 20 years of age. He is moving fast in terms of his body development. How long can he stay at 135 pounds? Zaur Abdullayev is a real talent and a real challenge. Undefeated, that is going to be an amazing fight. And by the way, don't forget, next Friday on the Haney Abdullayev card, we've got one of the women's fights of the year between Heather Hardy against Amanda Serrano, Brooklyn versus Brooklyn, and a brilliant heavyweight fight between Michael Hunter and Sergey Kuzmin, which I think could steal the show. Jamie Munguia against Patrick Alotti. Munguia, one of the rising stars of the division, and of course Mexican boxing. I'm sure he'll get through a lot. He should be fighting Jesse Vargas, but that's another story.
All right, let me steer the ship here. You're going to go through all.
Okay.
Let's there on this one.
I was going to go through the whole thing, Chris.
We'll go one by one, especially
started
with your particular fights. Amanda Serrano, Heather Hardy, by the way, maybe one step closer to fighting Katie Taylor at some point in the next 6 months or so. Gennady Golovkin, you recently announced that you were going to be working with him. Describe for us your role within Team Golovkin and what you want to do for him.
So, in the early stages of our relationship, I went to meet Gennady Golovkin. The main aim was to get him on DAZN. We had some great conversations. I brought in John Skipper, and Gennady made it clear that Triple G Promotions was a big part of his future in the sport. So I sort of let him do his own thing. We stayed in touch. I think the Canelo situation frustrated him a little bit in that, Canelo's going to fight who Canelo wants to fight. So my advice to Gennady was, let's make our own moves. Let's have our own strategy. And the Derevyanchenko fight fell into place perfectly. He now gets a chance to become a 2-time world middleweight champion, hold a piece of that division. And then we want to do our own thing, go out, maybe fight again in January and February. If the Canelo fight's there in May, Cinco de Mayo, great. If it's not, fight Andrade, fight Billy Joe Saunders, move up, fight Callum Smith, fight Danny Jacobs again. So I'm really pleased to be working with him. I feel like, speaking to him, he has many, many years left in the tank. He wants to fight Canelo, but I think the Derevyanchenko fight, style-wise, will be outstanding. I think Danny Jacobs came a little bit early for Derevyanchenko last time. This time, the styles will gel perfectly, and I think we'll get a war October the 5th at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, very close fight in that fight with Danny Jacobs, but he just lost that one at the Garden last year as well. To a different kind of boxing. On November 9th, you announced, part of Matchroom Boxing, KSI versus Logan Paul, the rematch. Now, when was the first time you heard of KSI and Logan Paul?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. The first fight came around, and one of their team got in touch with me and said, look, we're doing this fight, KSI against Logan Paul. So I said, who are they? So I said, well, they're the biggest YouTubers on the planet. So I laughed and said, nah, it's not for me. I'm a proper boxing fan. I've been around boxing 30 years. Not for me. Where are you doing it? Oh, we're doing it at Manchester Arena. It's like the biggest arena in Britain, right? I laughed. I sniggered. I walked away. I said, yeah, good luck with that. And who's broadcasting it? Oh, we're doing it on pay-per-view. I just couldn't believe what I did. Went on sale, sold 20,000 tickets on the first day of on sale. So now I'm feeling a bit sick, right? But I'm still thinking the pay-per-view is going to flop. 1.4 million pay-per-view buys for this fight. The worst thing about it was quite good. They trained really hard. They were in great shape. The fight was good and entertaining. So after I saw it all, I was, as I said, sick on the floor. Then started thinking about the rematch. It was a draw. They talked about the rematch. I started holding talks with KSI. Obviously, we came into the US market with DAZN. We'd seen the pay-per-view buyers in America were huge. But I said to him, look, I'm going to get so much criticism for this. So we've got to make some changes. Number one, you've got to turn professional. Well, how does that happen? I said, you've got to do things properly. You've got to train properly. You've got to go through all the medical situation, your scans, get your license. We want to do this properly. Number two, lose the head guards. That was probably the trickiest one. We had head guards in the first fight. I said, I don't care. I know, I appreciate amateur boxing, but if you want to do it properly, lose the head guards. Okay, last thing, you're wearing 10-ounce gloves. They nearly dropped to the floor. But I said, if you want to do this properly, we've got to have a professional fight card. If we're going to bring a new audience into the sport, which inevitably this will, we're going to have millions of people tuned in from all over the world who may never have watched boxing before. We've got to showcase not just them doing it properly, but also the elite level of the sport. We talk about Billy Joe Saunders, Devin Haney, and there's so many narrow-minded people who say, oh my God, you're going to put Devin Haney on the undercard, that's so disrespectful. No, that's called exposure. That's called building him to a completely new audience. And if we can get 5% of that audience to stay in the sport, then it's brilliant news for boxing. So, Staples Center, November the 9th, it's going to be totally wild, totally mad. I have no idea what's going to happen, but you're going to see a World Championship undercard and probably the biggest event of the year. Live on DAZN. We're going to get loads of stick along the way, but the truth is everyone will be watching, and more importantly, a whole new audience will be watching this wonderful sport.
All right, lastly, I've got to ask you this. Demetrius Andrade is one guy that's been frustrated over the last couple of months. He thought he'd be aligned for Canelo and Golovkin. He obviously is not. We saw Charlo announce he's taking a fight against Dennis Hogan towards the end of the year, taking him out of the picture. What can you do for Demetrius Andrade at this point?
You've got to keep him busy. I mean, the thing that's plagued Demetrius his whole career is inactivity. He's had 3 fights in, I think, 10 months with us, so we've eradicated that. But you can't get people to fight Demetrius Andrade. They know how good he is. We were nearly there with Canelo. Triple G against Andrade could fall in January or February. We've now got Billy Joe Saunders. It's a fight I've always wanted to see. So Demetrius has just got to stay busy, stay active, but he's going to have those career-defining fights, because if we miss the boat, we're going to miss the prime of Demetrius Andrade, and I believe he can beat all those guys. So it's one thing keeping him busy. We've got to push with the zone to say, no, we've got to get him Golovkin, we've got to get him Canelo, we've got to get him Billy Joe Saunders, and we will deliver for Demetrius Andrade.
Yeah, I sat down with Sean Porter last week, or a couple weeks ago. He said Demetrius Andrade is the best fighter in boxing. #1 pound for pound. He's got a lot of respect out there. Eddie, always appreciate it,
Cheers,
man.
Chris.
Good luck at the
Thank you,
press
mate.
conference. Good luck on this tour itself.
Yes, thank you. London tomorrow.
Always appreciate it. Speaking of the middleweight division, let's take a look at that middleweight picture. And several of those fighters all fighting on DAZN. Canelo Alvarez, he could be back in the mix as well. Gennady Golovkin, we know, returning to the ring on October 5th. Take a look.
The heavyweight division carries boxing, and it always does. It's the biggest guys. In some cases, it's the biggest stars. Welterweight, at least for the past 10, 15 years, has been the money division. But when you look at middleweight, it's always the perfect crossroads between both.
At the top, the champ is Canelo Alvarez. #1, definitely right underneath him, is the people's champ, Gennady Golovkin. Maybe #3 is still Daniel Jacobs. I mean, his only 2 losses in recent years is to Canelo and Triple G, and he acquitted himself quite nicely.
We want Canelo Golovkin. That's the defining fight of the division. Don't think the division works unless that is resolved. There was a lot of fanfare for Jacobs. He'll return to the fray, but what does that do for us if he fights Andrade or whatever? It's a nice fight, but it's sort of in its own cocoon. The others should all be fighting each other to fight the winner of Canelo Golovkin.
It is Alvarez who comes out. Good uppercut by Triple G. It's a close fight. Good jab work there. Right hands, and now very good work by Canelo. And that's it. Canelo's just a fight fought at the highest level.
160 at this point in time is very exciting. I could see a rematch of Canelo against Daniel Jacobs, because the truth is the result did not make a lot of people happy. And I think a third fight with Gennady and Canelo Alvarez is just as exciting. And I think Demetrius adds a little Cajun pepper to that mix of salt and pepper, because he brings that spice.
Light middleweight champion of the world, Demetrius Andrade.
If there's a wild card in this division at 160 pounds, it's certainly Demetrius Andrade. We've seen Canelo in the past go up against those slick, defensive, difficult guys, the Trouts, the Laras. You want to talk about a potential for kryptonite, potential trap fight? Canelo Alvarez doesn't walk away from anybody. He takes on all challenges. Demetrius Andrade would be a great test of that boxing IQ. When you're going to fight Canelo Alvarez, when you're going to try to take on the biggest star in the sport, you got to have power. You got to have speed. When you can put that together with a body with long arms and just a crafty difficultness, you're talking about potentially a fighter at middleweight who can do some big damage.
Oh, beautiful shot. What a punch.
Demetrius Andrade is a hard sell at 160, not because he doesn't know or because he doesn't have what it takes, because people have a hard time understanding. And I remember a very interesting quote. Boxing is like jazz. The more sophisticated it is, the harder it is to appreciate. And that's Demetrius.
I think Andrade has that WBO title that he views as a lottery ticket, and he's going to hold on to it. I spoke to him recently for an article in Ring Magazine, and he says he's targeting both Golovkin and Alvarez. If they fight a third time, then he wants the winner. But he says his job is just to stay busy and fight every other contender that they're not fighting. He says sooner or later, they're going to have to notice him because the fans are going to take notice.
There is no more top 10 guys anymore. I keep beating them, I keep beating them, and I keep beating them. Where's Canelo? Where's Triple G? What's the holdup? We welcome you back live here in New York City. Andy Ruiz Jr. has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. A big swath of press, cameras, video cameras,
cell phones following him here as he was wearing a big Mexican Borrero, getting set for this second stop on the 3-city stop tour. Tomorrow they fly over to London. Chris, he's here. I know you'll be speaking with him a little later on. What do you expect to hear from him today at this press conference?
I expect to hear the same Andy Ruiz, quiet, confident, steadfast belief in his ability. But Todd, as I look at these pictures, it's kind of surreal. I mean, it was just 3 months ago that the boxing world was effectively laughing at Andy Ruiz. Put it more broadly, the sports world was laughing at Ruiz. How many times do we see the face-off between those two on social media, and people would ask, is this a real fight? Well, it is a real fight. Andy Ruiz is the unified heavyweight champion of the world, and he is confident going to this rematch.
And he's coming down from his green room at the top floor here of Capital, this event center here in New York City. Has a little Middle Eastern feel to it, and they were just there yesterday in Saudi Arabia. What did you make of that press conference over in the desert?
Look, it's interesting because we have had significant fights in Saudi Arabia. We just had the World Boxing Super Series final late last year in Saudi Arabia, but this is going to be easily the biggest boxing event over there, maybe the biggest sporting event that they've seen over there. Two heavyweights battling it out. It's going to be a great event.
And in just, 3 months, they're going to build a brand new outdoor venue from scratch that should hold approximately 16,000 fans. They will have no trouble selling it. Brits alone flying down could probably fill it up.
And by the way, it's grown to 16,000. Who knows? It could get even bigger. Originally, I think it was supposed to hold 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. Now it's up to 16. You never know.
All right, without further ado, let's send it now to the stage and the master of ceremony himself. You just heard from him. You're going to get some more. Plenty of Eddie Hearn to go around.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, please. My friend, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Wow. Well, what have we got here then? The biggest fight of the year, the rematch. Andy Ruiz against Anthony Joshua for the unified world heavyweight titles. Who would have thought it? Who would have seen it? Saudi Arabia, December the 7th, live and exclusive on DAZN across America, live and exclusive on Sky Sports Box Office in the UK, and of course with all our broadcasters all over the world. We want to thank a few people for making this possible. Of course, I've just mentioned the broadcasters. We want to thank Omar Khalil from Skills Challenge Entertainment. We want to thank the GSA in Saudi Arabia, Prince Khalid, who is here with us today, who would not let this fight go. We were there, we were set for Cardiff. He said, no. Times are changing, things are changing. This is the biggest fight in boxing. We want this fight in Saudi Arabia. And he got it. Shannon Briggs, how are you doing at the back there? Thank you. Yesterday, we all experienced something quite unique. The hospitality that we received in Saudi Arabia was first class, but the event production, the logistics in Diriyah, which completely took my breath away. Having grown up around this sport and been involved with this sport for more than 30 years, I've realising that there is a new force in world boxing and we have to embrace that. And on December the 7th, you will witness an event that you will never forget. Major heavyweight fights of the past where the venues took people by surprise. The Rumble in the Jungle, the Thriller in Manila. Trust me when I say this event is of the same ilk. On June the 1st, we brought a sold-out Madison Square Gardens to their feet with these two warriors. One of the fights of the year, one of the great upsets of heavyweight boxing. Perhaps this man didn't believe it was an upset, but now the whole world is watching for the rematch, and it will be truly epic. I want to bring a few people to the stage before we talk to the fighters' teams. This young man on my right has come into the sport of boxing after a couple of months. He said he doesn't know how long he's going to last in the sport of boxing because it is a unique business. He's still here, he's still thriving. Because this is the thing about boxing, isn't it? Once you touch it, once you feel it, it will never leave you. And this is what the Middle East is also going to experience when they see this great sport in their region. DAZN has been a revelation for fight fans. We started 8 or 9 months ago. People said, oh, this will never last. Who are they going to get? Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, number 1. Canelo Alvarez, Danny Jacobs, Alexander Usyk, Gennady Golovkin, Devin Haney next week at the Garden. The schedule is out of this world. Sprinkle in a little bit of KSI Logan Paul to keep all you hardcore journalists really happy at the sold out Staples Arena, and you are going to see a new dawn of boxing via this wonderful new platform in DAZN. Ladies and gentlemen, the MVP from DAZN, Joseph Markowski.
Thank you, Eddie, for those, as ever, wonderful words to welcome me to the stage. And thanks to all our friends and partners on stage with us today. After a lot of chat and a lot of bluster over the summer, 2 things to us at DAZN are pretty clear right now. Ruiz Joshua 2 is clearly the most anticipated fight of 2019, and DAZN are building a schedule towards the end of the year that the sport has never seen the likes of before. A full season of quality fight sports matchups, really rivaling the top tier seasons of sports across the United States. When we launched in the US last September, less than a year ago, it's often easy to forget that, a lot of people in the room today wrote us off. But in the course of less than 1 year, we have entirely reshaped the boxing landscape by focusing on a very clear mission statement: to bring the best schedule of fights to fans at affordable price points. The DAZN calendar at year end really does say it all. Bright young stars like Devin Haney, like Jaime Munguia and Ryan Garcia. Champion versus champion unification matchups like Regis Prograis against Josh Taylor. And the world's biggest fighters in championship bouts. We'll soon announce Canelo's next opponents. Gennady Golovkin is back in championship contention.
Hide your virgin blood.
The 2 men on stage today, Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, and as I said, the most anticipated rematch of 2019. In June, the first fight between these 2 gentlemen captivated the world of boxing and well beyond that. The front cover of the New York Times, the back page of Sports Illustrated, Jimmy Kimmel, Joe Rogan, you couldn't miss it. It transcended the sport of boxing and it transcended the hardcore boxing fans. And now we're very proud the rematch of the biggest heavyweight upset of 2019, and years before that will be live again on DAZN. Both of these warriors will be back on DAZN on December the 7th, and that will be a day that will be remembered in the sport of boxing for many years to come. So we thank all of our friends in the media for attending today, all of our partners on stage, and we look forward to seeing you all back on DAZN very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joseph. Before the madness of boxing over the last couple of years, one partner has been with us forever, really, from our inception into sport of boxing, in Sky Sports in the UK. We've been their exclusive promoter for many years now, and there's no place we'd rather be, because like us, they have a passion for the sport. Through Barney Francis over the last few years, who has continuously supported major events. Of course, Anthony Joshua, who has exploded the sport of boxing in the UK with sellouts and record crowds of 90,000 at Wembley, 80,000 at the Millennium Stadium. And we're very lucky to have these guys as partners, because their support for boxing has never quit through the years. And I want to bring up the head of boxing for Sky Sports, Adam Smith.
Where are the bodies, Adam? Where are the bodies? I don't understand why people always say that.
Thanks, Eddie. We've been covering boxing on Sky for some 30 years, and we've covered some magnificent moments. I remember coming here when Nassim Hamed, the Prince, stunned New York, lit up the place, lit up the Garden in that Fire Fest with Kevin Kelly. We've had fantastic journeys with the likes of Lennox Lewis, of course, with Joe Calzaghe, Ricky Hatton, David Hay, Carl Froch, Amir Khan, many others. And we've been alongside Anthony Joshua since he turned pro in 2013. Unbeaten, expected to get through the test on his debut at the Garden in New York on June the 1st. And look what happened. We never know in boxing. This guy to my right I'd met 5 weeks before in Las Vegas, and he told me he'd win. He told me him and his team believed, no one else did. They came and they shocked the world, and that is what boxing does. What a rematch we have in store. Can Anthony Joshua right that wrong? Can Andy Ruiz continue to make these dreams possible? He believed it deep down, and maybe no one else did, but maybe they will this time. Maybe they will believe that it can be repeated. AJ and his team have got to go back to the drawing board. They've got to get it right this time. We're right behind him, as we have been for many years. He's been a wonderful ambassador for Sky and for Britain, and Andy Ruiz has been great for the sport of boxing. So it was one of the great upsets in the sport of boxing, certainly that I've seen. Lennox Lewis being knocked out by Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. They probably the only two that I've seen with my eyes that matched up to what we saw at the Garden and witnessed on that amazing night on June the 1st. Back in New York here, we've just been to Saudi Arabia. What a fascinating 24 hours there. Thank you, Prince Khalid and everybody. It was a real eye-opener. It's going to be some event on December the 7th, and we at Sky are right behind it, and my team will be delivering you a wonderful experience, and let's hope we get as dramatic a fight again on December the 7th, and who knows who'll win. That's the beauty of our sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We're going to go to the teams now. We're going to start with the champion. He's got an extra man up here, a very important man in the life of Andy Ruiz.
Where's the damn bodies, Adam?
I don't think there was many more proud individuals at Madison Square Garden that night on June the 1st than Andy Ruiz Sr. Right now, I want to welcome up to say a few words, Andy Ruiz Sr.
Everywhere I go, the people are asking about it.
Le damos las gracias a todo el público, a toda la prensa que vino, al príncipe de Arabia Saudita, que mucha gente cree que hay terrorismo allá. Es una ciudad muy segura. Invitamos a todos los mexicanos para que asistan allá. Y va a ser una pelea magnífica, dura para mi hijo, dura para Anthony Joshua, un gran hombre, Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearns, que hizo la pelea. Y vamos preparados para todos y vamos con todo y vamos a salir victoriosos de la pelea esta. Vamos a hacer historia en Arabia y traernos los títulos para México y Estados Unidos. ¡Arriba México!
That's Ozark right there.
I'll just translate that. He said that he's not sure his son can do it again, but he's going to try, but he thinks that for this occasion, AJ will get the win. Thank you, Andy.
I've been trying to fix my sound.
Now, a man that's in charge of trying to get that victory for Anthony Joshua, a man that has been by his side from the early days, before those World Championship silver medals, before those Olympic gold medals. The head trainer for Anthony Joshua, Robert McCracken.
Okay, we're going to talk after this is over. Let me see. Does my sound like it did yesterday, or does it sound better? My microphones are...
Yeah, it was a pretty tough night. June the 1st, Anthony losing his titles to Andy Ruiz. Don't think Anthony was himself that night, but at the same time, that looks like an excuse, because Andy Ruiz was fantastic on the night, and he is a very, very good fighter. We already knew that.
Look, AJ praying.
And we know he'll be even better prepared.
He's scared.
Him and Manny will go and work hard with his dad, and they'll be in tip-top shape for the rematch.
These sons of bitches yesterday didn't tell me my sound was messed up.
So Anthony knows what he's facing, and I do as well.
It was like that yesterday, and I didn't tell him.
A little bit of flack as well from the loss. I got no problem with that. I'm the head coach. I'm accountable, so I believe, and I wouldn't have said, yeah, we'll do the rematch if I didn't think Anthony could get his titles back and get the win.
Mic check.
It's going to be a big camp for us. It's going to be a tough one, and Anthony's motivated because he knows what's in front of him, and his sole mission is to get the belts back. I think what boxing's going to gain is two nice guys who are great fighters, and I think we're going to get a great fight December 7th in Saudi, and it's going to be fantastic. Thank you.
He's fucked up again? Is he fucked up now?
We go to the head trainer for Andy Ruiz. Of course, the iconic pictures of them both celebrating in the ring at Madison Square Garden have been everywhere. We're sick of seeing them now, to be honest with you. But Manny Robles believed his charge could win. and now he has the job of keeping him focused to try and win this very important rematch. The head trainer for Andy Ruiz Jr., Manny Robles.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I'd like to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for having us and giving us that warm welcoming that we had yesterday. It was unbelievable. Obviously, thank the city of New York. This is where we made history. We believed in ourselves, plain and simple. Styles make fights, and I believe that Andy had the style to beat Anthony Joshua. I've been following Anthony Joshua for a very long time. Since 2009 at the World Championships, I became a fan of his. He's an incredible fighter. And to me, he was, pound for pound, the best heavyweight champion up until he lost to Andy, of course. But nonetheless, he's a great fighter. He's an incredible person.
How much do you
incredible
think
individual.
Anthony
I have nothing
Joshua
but the
lost
utmost
in weight?
respect for
That's
him.
at least 10 pounds.
But I work with Andy. This is my man. And, you know, we're going to have more time to prepare this second time around. We're going to do a better camp. You'll see a better, faster, slimmer, better shape, better everything, Andy Ruiz this second time around. And I will promise the fans, promise the media, the fans, and everyone that you will see a great fight that night. Thank you.
Ain't nobody time you out, Joe. No, seriously, you motherfuckers let me do a whole stream yesterday.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you,
with
Manny.
The fucking sound fucked
move on
up. Y'all
to
ain't shit, man. You're supposed to be my
without
friend.
question, the two most important people in this room, the fighters, the guys that gave it everything in front of our eyes on June the 1st, and on December 7th, they will do it all over again. Firstly, and it's unique calling this man up first as a challenger, the former Olympic gold medalist, the former unified world heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua.
I'm talking about yesterday's stream. It was messed up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's well. I could say boxing, 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 and more boxing. In my short 11-year career, from the amateurs to the pros, I could say I've seen a lot. I wouldn't say I've seen it all yet, but I've definitely seen a lot. There's times that I faced defeat as an amateur in my third fight. And imagine I would have stopped then. There would be no now. I lost in the European quarterfinals. Imagine I stopped then. There would be no now. I lost in the World Championship finals. Imagine I stopped then. There would be no now. So I feel like stopping isn't in my DNA. To continue, and as long as I have breath in me, I'll keep on fighting for the passion of boxing. More so, to carry the sport as an ambassador of the sport, and for an ambassador of championship level fighting. I feel like that's where I belong. You know, ever since I got into boxing, I've just tried to rise to the top. Never wanted to be mediocre with it. I'm born with a fighting spirit. I know how to fight. And the blessing is that people reflect it as you lost the titles. You lost your titles. And I always say is that to lose something is to never get it back. I lost X. That means that you're never going to get it back. But I believe, and I'm certain, that I have a second chance, December 7th. We didn't have no warm-up fights. I'm not gun shy. I'm looking forward to getting back in at December 7th and reclaiming my belts. Shannon Briggs, can I get a let's go champ? Can I get a let's go champ? Can I get a let's go champ? That's what I'm talking about, let's go champ. Shannon Briggs talks about the times he was down and out, when nobody believed in him. I think everyone in this room has been through certain things where nobody believed in them. And nobody in this room would be here if they gave up. And that's where Let's Go Champ comes into my life right now.
I know, bring back the landlord, man. Where's the landlord at?
Thank you, AJ. And now the man that, of course, caused that upset on June the 1st, shocked so many people, maybe not himself and his team, but ever since we've seen him on just about every network, every sports program, every news program, every entertainment program possible.
Since he lost, and I understand.
We've seen and we follow with interest the Instagram.
He got to be focused.
The ice on the wrists, the new mansion, the Rolls Royce. He's earned it all.
Mr. Black Diamond.
He's earned it all.
That jet lag is a bitch.
On December 7th, like AJ said yesterday, the belts go in the air. and the best man will win. Ladies and gentlemen, the current unified world heavyweight champion, Andy Ruiz.
You know, first of all, I want to thank God. You know, without him, this wouldn't have happened. My team, Al Heyman, Eddie Hearns, all my loved ones.
Heyman in the chat.
But you know what? I'm happy to be here in New York. You know, this is where everything happened, where I became the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world. When I made history. But I know AJ, he wants his bouts back. I know he does. I know how it feels to lose. I lost against Parker when I thought I won the fight. But he could bounce back. But my job is for him not to win, for him not to get these bouts. You know, I've been through so much. I know a lot of people have been through so much stuff, but I've been through so many roller coasters in my life, so many doubters in my life that have been telling me I wasn't going to do nothing just because of my appearance, the way I look. But at least I think I'm a proof where people could say, man, if he did it, I could do it. And they could, as long as you train hard, you dedicate yourself, and you believe what you want to do. So what I believe in December 7th, the same results is going to happen. I'm going to train my ass off. God's in my side, and we're going to win. Para México, vamos a ganar todo. Vamos a regresar estos cinturones para México. Como tengo la sangre de mexicanos y con todo mi equipo, y vamos a lograr todo. Gracias a Dios, toda la gente. Gracias.
This is the fight, Shannon Briggs. You're correct. This is the fight. This is the fight of the year. And I just want to say as well, what two great individuals. This is such a beautiful, brutal sport. And every fighter deserves so much respect. These two are great role models, great ambassadors, and this is the fight of the year. This may be the heavyweight fight of the century. This may be the heavyweight occasion of our generation. On December the 7th, in Saudi Arabia, in Diriyah, in a purpose-built arena, 16,000 people will come together, but the world will be watching an iconic moment for our sport. I want to thank both teams. Saudi Arabia yesterday, New York today, we've got one more to go. London tomorrow. Are you? Oh, blimey. Cancel his train ticket, please, or his plane ticket. Thank you, Shannon, and thanks for all the media to coming out today. Of course, thank you so much to Sky Sports and DAZN. We're going to have a head-to-head up here now, continue the media as well. You're all welcome on December the 7th. Don't believe everything you hear. I was there yesterday. What a place, what a moment this is going to be on December the 7th. Thank you so much.
You know, I got a whole collection of like exclusive Al Heyman photos. I'm not even bullshit. I got shit on the cloud, on 2 clouds. I have probably
and with
the biggest
that, we
Al
get
Heyman
set
photo
for the
collection
stare down.
ever.
We saw one in Saudi Arabia, and if it's anything like the other, 20 or 30 times they've done this, dating back to their first fight, don't expect them to hit each other or to push each other or things to get ugly, correct?
Well, 3 months ago, this stare down was widely panned across the internet. It was called a fighter against a slob. These two did not look like they were competing in the same profession. Nobody is going to be laughing at this stare down anymore.
I just saw Ruiz chug a big jug of orange juice. He's obviously not doing the low-carb diet right now.
That's a good part about being a heavyweight.
Right. But I will say this about Ruiz. You know, when Buster Douglas fought after his big win over Mike Tyson against Evander Holyfield, he looked wholly out of shape. If Ruiz is indeed quote-unquote out of shape, will we even be able to tell looking at his body?
Probably not, because Andy Ruiz just kind of looks like he looks right now. Now, if he is 280, 290 pounds on fight night, that could certainly be problematic, but he came into the fight against Anthony Joshua heavier than he came in against Alexander Dimitrenko just a couple of months prior. So his size has never really been, or never really defined the kind of fighter that he is.
You know, you asked Eddie Hearn earlier, why didn't Anthony Joshua decide to go in a new direction with his trainer as they get set for their stare down here? what trainer do you think could help this camp that maybe they could at least bring in for some consultation?
Oh, look, you can look to Southern California. You can look to someone like Joe Goosen, who is a tremendous motivator. You could even look to somebody like Robert Garcia, who certainly has familiarity with Andy Ruiz. You could look to a guy that is a great offensive fighter or trainer who has trained big men before, that being Freddie Roach. So I think adding a different voice is interesting. These two like each other. They like each other. So I'm with you. I don't think we'll see too much fireworks.
I got a new Getting to New York strat that I'm using. I'm going to drive to Trenton or as close to New York as possible, and then fucking catch a train in or some shit. Instead of catching a train all the way from Philly. Fucking $71 to $120 a pop. The fucking train tickets, man. But no, today
I think you can hear Shannon Briggs, who let him in the building. I'm not sure, but he has been the hype man for both of these guys, and just got a big smile on the face of Andy Ruiz Jr., who quite frankly hasn't stopped smiling since June 1st.
Yeah, why would he? The guy is now carrying 4 titles. You can legitimately call 3 of them real. But he has accomplished so much, and that was the pinnacle of his career. Can he repeat that performance?
Shannon Briggs had a nice little run
December 7th is going to be a big night.
You know, I mean, come on, we knew Shannon Briggs.
And we're about to wrap things up here live from New York City. He is Chris Mannix. I'm Todd Grisham. You know, an interesting story the other day, I think Deontay Wilder kind of wanted to stir the pot a little bit. He said, you know what, I may try and pay Tyson Fury step-aside money so that I can face the winner right away of this Ruiz-AJ fight. Your thoughts?
I don't see that happening. There are signed contracts between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, which is my understanding of it. And Tyson Fury knows anything could happen in a fight with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Like, Deontay Wilder could stop Anthony Joshua, but Joshua could win. And then, can you make a deal with Joshua's side? Remember, Joshua is represented by Eddie Hearn. Tyson Fury affiliated with Frank Warren. Those two have not done a lot of business over the years, so I think Tyson Fury, who knows and believes full well he can beat Deontay Wilder, is going to make sure that the next fight after Ortiz is Tyson Fury.
All right, put a little wrap on what we witnessed here today. Any surprises from what you saw or heard?
Not really. These guys both seem very focused, and they both seem kind of in character. I mean, Anthony Joshua is never going to be this guy that storms around, talks about how angry he was, lets you kind of inside what he's truly feeling. And Andrew Ruiz is about as aloof as... Look, he is confident about his chances in the rematch, but he's also defiant about people that suggest he needs to make any significant changes going into this fight. Now,
This is the overtime coverage that was not available on the YouTube stream. They cut the YouTube stream off.
It's truly a stunner, even by his own high standards.
Of course it was. I mean, Eddie Hearn went into this fight thinking that we could have Deontay Wilder coming up in a couple of fights. He could take his fighter to the next level. Instead, he's hoping his guy wins because, look, there's a ton at stake for Anthony Joshua.
You want to listen to the rest of this before we start talking?
He's going to have to go into a full-scale rebuild. I mean, I don't think it's too hyperbolic.
Should be only no more than 10 minutes left, maybe.
Some version of David Price.
Yeah.
I mean, David Price was like another guy, a decorated Olympian, big power, never made it to the world championship level, but when his chin was exposed, he was never the same.
Veronica likes only black cocks. Only black cocks can satisfy her. No white men, only black men.
For him to get back to the high level.
And we know what happened to Roy Jones. Obviously, he went up to heavyweight and came back down, but once his chin was gone, he was done as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on December 7th for a myriad of reasons. Let's show you the upcoming fight calendar here on DAZN. And ladies and gentlemen, it is loaded from top to bottom. That's not hyperbole. Those are facts. As you look at this calendar, Chris, have you ever seen a 2.5 month lineup in boxing on one network like this?
Look, it's definitely a strong lineup, and you have some significant fights on the horizon. Gennady Golovkin, October 5th. We all look forward to seeing Golovkin in the ring, and I really think that Derevyanchenko fight is a competitive fight. Usyk making the jump to heavyweight for the first time in his career, and it's capped off with Ruiz Joshua. It's an afternoon fight here in the U.S., but I really believe that's going to draw a ton of interest because everyone either saw the first fight or watched highlights of the first fight, and they'll be anticipating that rematch.
And how about October 12th, the debut of Alexander Usyk taking on a guy that I know pretty well, Tyrone Spong, world champion kickboxer, ferocious power in his hands. He suffered a tragic leg break back, I believe, in 2015, forced him to retire from the sport of kickboxing. He turned his attention to boxing. He has not lost yet. I believe 12 of his 13 wins have come by knockout. If he can land a big punch on Usyk, which is a big if, he could cause problems.
Look, Usyk better not be overlooking him, because this guy can punch, he's got power, and he could be dangerous, especially when you're making your debut in the heavyweight division. Usyk, if he wins, he is going to have the right to challenge the winner of Joshua versus Ruiz for that WBO heavyweight title. So the WBO rules work. The former WBO cruiserweight champion can challenge for the heavyweight title if he moves up in his next time out. Usyk wins, he's got a big opportunity, but you can't overlook Spong in your heavyweight debut.
It's the fight season on DAZN, the only place to watch Canelo, Triple G, Joshua, Ruiz. Big fights, any device, one price. Download the DAZN app today. So our final thoughts here from New York City, Chris. They head to London, I believe, later today for the final trip of the three-stop tour.
Yeah, they're not messing around here. Saudi Arabia one day, here in New York the next, off to London after that. Look, I'm just looking forward to seeing what we get out of both these